Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you're tuning in from. It's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. Today's Tuesday. It's June 20th. Hope you're well. Going to get started with the live stream here momentarily. We'll give it another minute or so for people to join us. If you're just joining us, make sure to smash the like. Help support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. And like I said, just remain patient. We'll get started here momentarily. All right, I see we have quite a few people joining the live stream. Welcome, welcome. Going to get started here in about 30 seconds. If you could smash the like, share the video with anybody that might find value, and we'll get things kicked off here in a moment. But I'll save some time at the end as well for community discussion. And if anybody does have any thoughts or opinions on this, please let me know. But we're going to be discussing today rescheduling versus, and even possible descheduling versus safe banking. Which one I think is better, which one I think has the most likelihood of playing out this year, or could we even see both this year? Again, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment, and we'll get to the live chat here toward the end. But just sit tight, we'll get started here in another 15 seconds or so. All right, going to get started with today's content and live stream. As I mentioned, today is Tuesday, June 20th. It's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back in the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, and interviews. In today's live stream, going to be discussing the potential of rescheduling or even descheduling versus safe banking, which I think is better, which has the most likelihood of playing out this year, or first, and then the thought process behind both of these happening this year in 2023. Like I said, before we get to it though, make sure to smash the like, help support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. Share the video with anybody that might find value. And once again, thank you very much to the community who's supported me along the way, getting close to that 500,000 views on the channel. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you. I have done some videos on this in the past, and recently, I may add, I did a video here, Fed's AIM finishing MJ review this year. And then there were some updates with regards to safe banking as well. And if you recall, I did a interview with Morgan Fox, who's the political director at Normal, which is a nonprofit organization that lobbies the US government. And he discussed the potential of safe banking and rescheduling and things like that happening. And maybe I'll try and get another interview with Morgan at some point soon, because that was 9 months ago, and a lot has changed from the US perspective, right? So from a regulatory and a reform perspective. And we'll just go through some of these articles here that I've already covered, but Feds aim to finish MJ rescheduling this year. Top Biden official tells MJ moment. So we know that HHS is currently going through the process to figure out what schedule, if at all, if it's going to be rescheduled or descheduled. We'll see if they potentially landed on the same playing field as alcohol. That remains to be seen, but we're getting a lot more support. Key Senate committee chair hopes to hold MJ banking vote in the next 2 to 3 weeks following negotiation with the GOP, and that was 2 weeks ago. So realistically, we could see this any week now, where we see a key Senate committee vote on MJ banking. And then this was published 10 hours ago. GOP senator backs MJ banking bill, but doubts Democratic leadership will advance it. And we know that there's going to be a new election come 2024. So we'll see a lot of skepticism right now with regards to the Democrats, whether they're getting a lot of heat right now from the crypto side as well. We know that the Senate is Democrat held, and we had a huge run up in February 2021 on hopes of US legalizing MJ at the federal level because of the fact that the Democrats took control of the Senate, and we thought that that would be the catalyst to really push things along. But as we know, they haven't done anything. They fell short on a lot of these promises with regards to MJ, but we'll see if they can kind of climb back up the ladder and regain some of the voters and actually fill through with some of their promises. But here's an article here from MJ Business Times, and I want to just go over my thoughts and opinions. So obviously we could get safe banking this year, or we could get rescheduling. They're trying to get it done by the end of the year. As I mentioned here, Feds aim to finish it this year. And we know that the U.S. government's super slow. So if it's this year, great, but we kind of take it with a grain of salt because the U.S. government moves pretty slowly. So I would think that, in my opinion, that safe banking has the most likelihood of passing first. But we could get, a sweeping motion where, if we get this rescheduled, that will solve the safe banking and the 280E tax code, right? That burden from the IRS right now. And we could solve, based on HHS and the review there, that could solve both of these problems. But I've been on record to say that I think safe banking will be the first to happen because of the fact that we'll want to see the Wall Street banks get in, the institutions and the hedge funds get positioned first, right? As we know, we can't have fair and orderly markets because that's just not the way the world works. We know that the markets are 110% manipulated, from tech to EV to, illegal drugs, right? So the fact that MJ is illegal in the US, I would think that the institutions, the Wall Street banks, they're going to, sweep in here now. They're going to get positioned. And what I think has the most likelihood of passing is safe banking. And then we'll get, the JP Morgans, the Morgan Stanleys, the Goldman Sachs of the world positioned. And then we'll get uplisting to the NYSE and the NASDAQ, whereby they'll be able to open the floodgates for those US major exchanges and those US major Wall Street banks, right? So that's what I've been thinking in the past, but things are starting to really heat up. So things are definitely changing, and I'm open to interpretation. I'm open to ideas. Again, I don't know everything, and I'm just kind of going by what I've seen in my day-to-day research and what I think is the most likely scenario. And I do think that safe banking has the most likelihood, but could we potentially see a scenario where we come back with rescheduling, where it is a Schedule 3 or lower, which would solve a lot of these issues, right, with regards to uplisting to major exchanges, and then the 280E tax code, which we know Cureleaf founder and executive chairman Boris Jordan said that they'd already be paying a dividend more than likely to investors if it wasn't for 280E. So they've already paid the U.S. government over $340 million in taxes under 280E, and they could reposition that as a potential dividend for investors. So that's something to really think about. But like I said, rescheduling, in my opinion, is the most important, and that it's also going to remove the stigma for these big companies that want to enter the space, right? You're talking the companies, the Fortune 500 companies, the big conglomerates that are on the sidelines that just don't want to enter the space until they feel comfortable, right? They have a fiduciary duty, they have shareholders to adhere to, and if Coca-Cola or Amazon or Apple were to back this space, which we know Amazon and Apple are already advocating for reform and very much supporting of it, we know that we're probably not going to see the needle move too much until the stigma gets erased, right? And most Fortune 500 companies, just plain and simple, aren't going to want to touch it until it's no longer classified as a Schedule 1, right? We're on the same schedule as heroin. So do you really think that, big companies, conglomerates or Fortune 500 companies are going to want to touch it when there's that stigma still related to it, right? So I think that is the most important, but I think in my opinion, the most probable outcome, in my opinion, is safe banking first, and then we get rescheduling. And like I said, safe banking has hit the Senate and been rejected multiple times, and it just keeps coming up again and again and again. And I think safe banking really makes the most sense here. And rescheduling, they said hope to have it finished by the end of the year, right? HHS review. And again, we know that the government's super slow. So I take things with a grain of salt, and I know that they usually crawl and walk before they run. So I'm in the camp of thinking we get safe banking first and then potential rescheduling, right? I think that we're going to see the big banks get positioned first. But again, I'm willing to be persuaded. If anybody does have any other thoughts and opinions, like I said, let me know in the live chat. And always love thoughtful discourse, even if you don't agree with me or you agree with me, disagree with me. It's about us coming together as a community and as an industry and trying to figure out what is the most likely scenario, right? That's really all investing is. And then spreading out our risk, right, into multiple different asset classes, but not just within multiple asset classes, but within the same asset class, right? You can own producers in the US, Canada, you can have some retailers, you can have some ETFs in there, all that stuff, right? Picks and shovels. But let's read this article here. So does rescheduling or descheduling MJ move the needle? Rescheduling MJ to Schedule 3 or lower, or completely descheduling altogether, would remove the tax burden of IRS Code 280E and provide major financial relief to all MJ companies operating in the state legal markets. And right now, a lot of these companies are operating as cash businesses, right? So it's very dangerous to the employees and the businesses because they're they're dealing with a lot of cash. Also, the consumer can't pay with a credit card, and then you have to get hit with this fee, right? Because it's essentially an ATM transaction, which, as we know, if you take money from an ATM, you're dinged with a fee, right? So that would solve all that. And then obviously uplisting to US major exchanges. So such a move could also provide a bump to MJ stocks, as a positive reform announcements tend to do. It could also pave US plant touching companies a pathway to US exchanges. So if we get rescheduling to 3 or lower, or completely descheduling altogether, that would, in one sweeping motion, would essentially fix all of this, right? Safe banking would be included in that, right? So we would incorporate all that under one essential reform umbrella, and that would solve all problems. But I really don't think that's going to happen. I'd love to be wrong on that, but I think the most likelihood of passing is safe banking, and then we get the Wall Street banks positioned. And then, as we know, the US is pretty slow when it comes to major changes like that. So I would think that rescheduling would come later, and we get the financial institutions positioned. Then we get the rescheduling. Then we start to see the big conglomerates enter the space and Fortune 500 companies, right? Once it's no longer associated with that stigma, right? So it's not written in stone, but if we were to reschedule or deschedule, even more so, it would probably lead the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ to review their anti-MJ stances, Brockstein said. That could give a huge advantage to US companies looking to uplist. And obviously, it's going to benefit the US companies more, but because of the amount of hype that this would generate and media attention, it's going to be good for all of MJ, right? The whole sector moves together, not down to the second, the day, of the minute, but we know that it's moving together in tandem because there's companies that are profitable. Look at like Green Thumb, look at some of the producers in the US who have great numbers, great fundamentals, great financials, and they're profitable, but they're down 80, 90% plus from their February 2021 highs or their all-time highs, right? And that has to do with this sector being nascent and in its infancy, and everything moves together, right? Again, not down to the second, the day, the minute, or even the week, but usually on a monthly and a yearly time frame, it follows each other. So if we start to see the US companies start to benefit from this for potential uplisting the NYSE and the NASDAQ, that's going to be good for all MJ, including the Canadian operators. But then, rescheduling and things like that, that's just all this is going to create hype, right? So it's going to be good for the space, in my opinion. But again, let me know what your thoughts and opinions are. But that's pretty much the rundown. So again, a lot of people, I was getting that question a lot lately. What is the difference with safe banking? Would it solve all these problems? And the answer is no. Safe banking wouldn't solve all these problems. We really need, the most important is rescheduling, right? Or even descheduling altogether. And I've been on record to say that I think that we could see a little bit more pain before we see some gain, right? So I think that over the next couple of weeks, maybe a month to 2 months, I think that we could potentially find a bottom here in MSOS and across the sector. And then that's also lining up with some of the technicals as well, which I'll point out here in a moment. But I'm thinking that we could see this seasonality effect where we see a summer lull, drop off in activity, which we know there's been virtually no activity at all in the MJ space. And then leading into the fall, right, we also have like Maryland, we have Florida potentially adding to the ballot for 2024. And that's going to be a huge market, right? Very, very huge market. And then we could have individual states legalize as well, right? So we could see that, some hype from that and some bullish momentum spawning from that. But then we could also see a slew of other things with, rescheduling, descheduling, HHS review. We could see legalization of medical. We could see safe banking. There's so many catalysts that are coming. And I don't think that we're really going to see a bottom until the next month or two. Could the bottom be already in? Absolutely, it could be. But I'm in the camp of thinking we're probably either going to go sideways or slightly lower. And I was kind of I reiterated that time and time again, but today I was kind of given a little bit more confirmation of that. If we bring up the Canadian MJ, you can see here a lot of names were down double digits today. OGI sitting at around 41 cents, Hexo down, and I anticipated that. I did a video yesterday that Hexo shareholders, the court order final approval for the Tilray merger, and Hexo was down a lot more than Tilray today, which again I anticipated, and Tilray was down about 1% today, but getting very, very close to sitting new all-time lows as well, right? And again, I think that we could see a little bit more pain before we see some gain in the sector. Could we be due for a short-term rally and a relief rally? Absolutely. I think it would be more than I think it would probably be a dead cat bounce, right, where we just see a relief rally and then we potentially see one or two more lows. But I am expecting potentially one or two more leg down. And then also the broader market, so the S&P 500 is likely due for some consolidation. We have really no consolidation here on the weekly time frame since back here at 402. So if we were to factor that in, we could pull back from here on the S&P 500 7-8% and still just be looking for a weekly higher low. So we're definitely due for some consolidation. We hit weekly overbought territory. So again, that's going to be headwinds for the sector. But like I said, the bottom could be in, and I've been saying for a while now that MSOS could be a nice trade opportunity and swing trade off of $5 psychological. You could set your stop just below $5, or if you're looking to load up for the long term, not financial advice, this is entertainment purposes only. Would never tell you to buy, sell, or hold because I'm not legally able to. But in my opinion, I think that was a good trade to play off $5 psychological with a stop just below that. Whether it be 474, 444, allowing a little bit more risk if you're so inclined to do so. But like I said, could we see a bottom being set here? It could be already in, absolutely. But in my opinion, we need to see a couple of weekly candle closes over EMA 26 here, which is the white line here above the yellow line on MSOS. We haven't closed 2 or more weekly candles above that since this massive 90%, almost 91% drawdown from the all-time high. So if we can get 2, preferably 3 weekly candle closes over EMA 26 there at $6.60, then I think we're due for a massive, massive rally. And I don't think that that's going to happen until the next 1 or 2 months. I think we'll probably either see 1 more leg down, maybe 2, or just go sideways for the next month or 2. And then into the fall, I think we're really going to see things start to ramp up and kick into high gear for MSOS. We're looking really good here too. We've got multiple weeks in a row closing over the 10-week moving average. And then we've seen a bull cross of the stochastic, and the MACD is also bullish as well. It's been bullish really since February and March of this year. And then if we take a look at the weekly moving averages, we have nothing nearby until 852, and then after that, the 100 weekly at 1596. So not much in terms of resistance there in terms of weekly moving averages. In terms of daily moving averages, we are holding the 50 here as support, and then we've got 595 there, which is the 100. And then a lack all the way up to the 200-day moving average there at 791. It's going to be a while before we see the 50-day and the 200-day moving average cross, which would be a golden cross, which would be extremely bullish for the sector, right? And again, because it's so far away, with the 50-day moving average sitting at 548 and the 200 at 791, I think it's probably going to be at least a couple of months before we see those moving averages cross, right? And then in terms of the monthly time frame, it's a monthly inside bar. We haven't even started the monthly bounce again this month. So we started it last month. We broke the high of April in May, and now we'll see if we can continue the monthly bounce for the second month in a row. But we still need that high and a higher low followed by a higher high to be in a monthly uptrend, and that's what I want to see to be confident that the bear market bottom is in. And then, like I said, if we can get up to that 200-day moving average, come back up and test it. The last time we tested it was back here in January. And then, like I said, it'll probably be a couple of months before we see those moving averages play out. But it's not just MSOS. You can bring up GTII. MSOS is just tracking all the major indicators or all the major producers in the US. But we already had a golden cross here back in January on GTII, but then we got slammed down with the rest of the sector because the sector moves together, right? Sometimes you can have individual names run out of unison with the rest of the sector. But ultimately, on a weekly, not so much on a weekly, on a monthly and a yearly basis is where we usually tend to see the sector move together, right? And then if we bring up TLRY, so Tilray is many months, I would think, at least 2 or 3 months, bare minimum, before we would see a bullish cross there. Canadian MJ definitely weaker. CGC nowhere near it. What about Trulieve? Trulieve still looks like at least a couple of months away. And then Cureleaf starting to see, this is like one of the only MJ names in my portfolio right now that I'm adding, or that I'm up on. I'm only up single digits gain, but I've been slowly dollar cost averaging that one, and I've just been holding off, extremely patient on adding Cureleaf. And like I said, a lot of the US names finally starting to catch up to the rest of the sector, down 80-90% plus from their all-time highs or February 2021 highs. And I think now is as good a time as ever to start loading up for the long term. And I really do like Cureleaf long term. But again, not financial advice, but like I said, technicals definitely looking like we could see a little bit more short-term pain, if not some sideways action, is what I'm in that camp. And then I'm thinking into the fall, September, October is where we really start to see MJ kick into high gear. And I'm still in that camp as well of thinking that MJ isn't going to enter a new multi-year bull market until we see crypto and tech stocks hit their top and enter a new multi-year bear market. And you can see with Facebook and Tesla and Google and Microsoft, they're all very, very strong at the moment. Crypto is very strong, and it's looking like we could see a potential alt season and some upside there. And like I said, I think we could see some upside in the tech sector, the NASDAQ. We could see the crypto space as well really start to gain more attention here. We have talks of a Bitcoin ETF, and a lot of the same traders, that same demographic, trade crypto as MJ, right? So that's why I think that they're going to probably want them to run inverse to each other. So again, I'm really looking out for that as a potential to mark a potential top as well. And then obviously Congress being banned from owning stocks should mark a potential market top as well. So those are some of the things that I'm looking out for. But we'll jump into the chat here. It doesn't look like we have much. I guess everybody's just absorbing the information. Obviously, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I would like to get Morgan Fox, political director at Normal, back on for another interview. I think I myself and a lot of people, if not all people listening to my voice right now, would appreciate that as well. And I think that it's been almost a year since we spoke, and I think that he'd have a lot of really great insight and a true expert in that field, right? So it'd be great to get from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But let me know, smash the like, let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see another interview with Morgan Fox, the political director at Normal, who lobbies the US government with regards to MJ Reform, and they're a nonprofit organization as well. But definitely going to be trying to get some more interviews, cracking out some more interviews here on the channel here over the next couple of months as we look for a potential bottom and some momentum shifting to the bulls here into the fall. So it's going to happen eventually. It's just a waiting game. I would say so. Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but when. And with stocks down 80, and that was another indication that I was looking for as well. I was waiting for the US names to drop down to around 80-90% from their all-time highs and 52-week highs, right? And that has to do with the whole sector moving together, right? And again, I'm still a little concerned because generally when we see bear market bottoms, like if we're this beaten down, right? Some names down 99% from their all-time highs or February 2021 highs, and most down 80-90% plus. We haven't seen that V-shaped recovery, or we haven't seen that aggressiveness that buying pressure met with the aggressive downside. So I think, most, not always, but mostly markets react that way, where we see one final capitulative move down, where we see, a hard and fast flush, and then we see a massive buying frenzy ensue just shortly after, right? So we see a nice V-shaped recovery, or we see a news catalyst, or we see some kind of major technical indicator that would say that we're finally seeing some buying pressure and some momentum shifting, and we just haven't been seeing that. There's no buyers in the space, right? And like I said, I've been on record as well to say that I think that what's going to knock us out of this rut that we're in, this bear market, this multi-year bear market, is going to be the MJ Rescheduling Act here in Canada is being reviewed right now. So we could see some packaging, distribution, labeling, marketing, taxation breaks on that. We'll see. That will definitely help the industry. But more importantly, safe banking, rescheduling, descheduling, legalization of medical, full-blown legalization at the federal level in the U.S. I think that's really the only thing that's going to move the needle. And then the 280E tax burden, right? We've already seen the individual states start to allow that. They're starting to circumvent that at the state level to get, to get more money back in the pockets of producers, essentially. So, like I said, the writing's on the wall, and we'll wrap things up here, but. Again, we'll just take it day by day. And again, I welcome, all different thoughts and opinions. And like I said, it's nice to have, counter opinions or people agree with me, disagree with me. I always love thoughtful discourse. And like I said, just always willing to be persuaded and hear other people's perspective as well, because there's a lot of moving parts with this. And I'm by no means a legal expert or, a political expert. And I'm learning each and every day, and I learn a lot from the community here as well. So I applaud and thank each and every one of you for commenting and your contributions to the channel and into the space, right? Because this is truly the industry of the future, right? Medicine of the future, and we're all helping pioneer this amazing industry, right? So pat yourself on the back, because it's not easy, but usually it's the people who stick through the tough times that come out on top, right? So. I agree. It's just a waiting game at this point. And like I said, you can change your mindset too, right? This is just a longer time to accumulate. We can accumulate more shares and change your mindset. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity where, we're going to see this become legal at the federal level in the US and across the globe, right? And again, it's better to be early than 1 second too late. My only hope to see the light at the end of the tunnel is if the US does pass legalization federally. Anyone else the same as me. Well, yeah, that'll obviously be the major catalyst and the biggest catalyst of our lifetime. But the thing is, like I said earlier, is I'm skeptical of that because the U.S. is very, very slow, right? They usually crawl before they walk, and they usually walk before they run. But as we know, the U.S. is never usually first, but they're never last. And when they get behind something and they back it and they adopt it, then they can leapfrog everybody else, right? Every other country, every other economy, because they have the biggest economy in the world, right? So yeah, I think that, baby steps, we'll get safe banking, then we'll get rescheduling or even descheduling, and then we'll see, big companies start to enter the space with no longer seeing that stigma associated to the space, and then they'll feel more comfortable for themselves and their shareholders, and then we'll see full-blown federal legalization, in my opinion, right? Why not take a phased approach to all of this so that the market makers can sell the top and then buy the bottoms, right? They're just going to rinse, repeat this. And generally, we don't just see everything go up in a straight line, right? So I think that's the most likely scenario. But yeah, obviously, the U.S., you're correct. That definitely is the biggest catalyst that could ever happen or will ever happen. It's just when, right? Like Jan Losi said, it's not really so much a question of if, it's just when and what happens in what order, right? Keep the interviews going. I appreciate those. Thank you very much. I'm definitely trying to get some interviews. Like in the bear market, usually it's the time for building. And usually in a bull market, it's when you start to see more companies want to get out to the public and things like that. But yeah, that's definitely a focus here on the channel, is to get more interviews going. So thank you very much for letting me know that you appreciate that, because like I said, it does take a lot of work, especially prepping for those interviews and reaching out, trying to get connections and things like that. So if anybody does have any connections as well, or knows anybody that can potentially get me an interview with some of it, let me know what companies you'd be interested in hearing interviews from as well, or what organizations you'd like to potentially hear interviews from as well, and that can give me some ideas. And then if anybody does have any connections or anything like that to any of these, so I know a lot of people on here are employees at MJ companies and things like that as well. So if you have any connections, be sure to send them to me, and we'll do what we can. But glad to hear you're appreciating the interviews. Will Tilray be one of the top 3 in the sector? I do believe so. Yeah, I think top 5 for sure. Top 3 is very, very doable in my opinion. I think Tilray will stand the test of time. You got to think, right? We're Tilray, Afria, Redecan, and Hexacorp, right? So like this is a massive, massive conglomerate in the making, and yeah, they got their hands in everything, right? They got their hands in multiple alcohol. They got their distribution. They've got health and wellness. They've got MJ. And they're just waiting on the U.S. to legalize, right? That's basically the main thing. But they have all these different diversification in their portfolios. They all have these different sectors that they're participating in that can complement once we get U.S. federal legalization, right? So a lot of these brands, they can, like Sweetwater, 420, and all those brands can easily be infused with MJ, right? I'm not up on the news of senators not being able to trade stocks. Just trying to see, is this supposed to happen? Yeah, so there's a bill going through Congress, essentially, that's looking to ban congressional members from owning stocks, right? And the Federal Reserve banned themselves at the peak of the last a couple of years. It was like a year and a half ago or something like that. You can look it up. Don't quote me, but pretty much when we were at all-time highs in the stock market a year ago, a little over a year ago, the Federal Reserve banned themselves and their staff from owning stocks. And now Congress, there's bills going through Congress right now to ban congressmen and women from owning stocks. I mean, it makes sense, right? You're making laws. You shouldn't be able to buy individual stocks like that. Anybody who's an elected official, in my opinion, should not be able to own stocks. Like a monkey could figure that out. I think that's just absolute idiocracy. Like, how can anybody think that was a good idea, right? And like Nancy Pelosi is like the best stock trader of all time, right? It's like, no wonder you're crafting laws and you're printing, and the Fed's printing trillions of dollars. And they're working hand in hand with Congress, right? And they're printing trillions of dollars, propping up the market artificially. So I think that could potentially happen into the fall or the beginning of 2024, where we see Congress being banned. So like I said, yeah, just do some Google searching on that. You should be able to bring up more information. And then, like I said, watch for that to potentially happen over the next couple of months. Don't quote me on it. I think that has a very high likelihood of playing out, though. But always a fun time coming on here and chatting with all of you, and like I said, I do learn a lot from the community, and I do appreciate all of the support along the way, but wanted to keep this around 30 minutes and doing exactly that. So have yourself a fantastic evening. If you can smash the like if you think I earned it today, I would appreciate it, and share the video with anybody that might find value. It's Rod with Power Group. Thanks for joining us again on The Pursuit of Wealth, and we'll see you in the next video.